As previously mentioned in the terminology section, ecosystem focuses on the living organisms and their non-living environment, each interacting and influencing each other's property. And both of these are necessary for the maintenance and development of the whole ecosystem. So now we're going to focus on the two main types of ecosystem. So the first one is the tropical rainforest. So first, what is tropical rainforest? The name tropical is because of the location where the rainforest can be found, which is in the tropical region. So in the tropical region, the environment is commonly has high temperature and rainfall throughout the year. So because of this, the surrounding climate is very humid. Tropical rainforests can be found in South and Central America, Africa, as well as Asia, which includes Malaysia. Another important character for tropical rainforests is they have the richest and the most diverse biome in comparison to all other biomes that can be found on Earth. The main defining characteristic for a tropical rainforest is because of its distinct strata or layer. So dalam gambar ni pun kita boleh nampak tropical rainforest tu kita boleh bagi kepada layer-layer yang berbeza yang dipanggil sebagai strata. So there are 5 main layers. Start with the lowest one, which is forest floor, and then shrubs, followed by understory, and then the most dense layer, which is the canopy, and then the least dense layer is the emergent layer. So these are the 5 main layers of the tropical rainforest. First, the forest floor. So in this layer, it is the bottom and receive the least amount of light, which is about only 2%. Plants have to become adapted for it to be able to grow in this region. Next, it is actually the richest in biodiversity. Kenapa? Because they contain large number of decomposers, for example bacteria and fungi, as well as other invertebrates such as earthworms and also large predators. This is the forest floor is the richest in biodiversity because they have large number of decomposers like bacteria, like fungi, and other invertebrates like the earthworm. And lastly, large predators. The next layer is shrub. So in the shrub layer, it has the densest plant growth that mainly consists of fern or pteridophytes, as well as other plants that need less sunlight, and also some parasitic plants such as the Rafflesia species. The next layer is understory. So this layer sits between the canopy and the forest floor, and it gets only about 2 to 5% sunlight and contain mainly tree trunk. So bahagian ni kebanyakannya adalah batang pokok sahaja yang kita akan jumpa. Because of the low sunlight, it is a suitable habitat for birds, snakes, as well as lizards. The fourth layer is canopy. So in the canopy, it is made up of large trees, which is about 30 to 45 meter in height. It has dense leaves and branches to block winds, rainfall, and sunlight, hence creating a humid and still and dark environment below. So because of canopy tu sangat tebal dengan daun-daun, that's why layer di bawah dia yang include understory, shrub dan juga forest floor tadi very dark dan juga very humid. Plants that we can find in this layer includes orchid, mosses, and lichens. which attach to the trunk and branches and obtain water and mineral from the rain and debris. So dense leaves tadi akan trap rain and debris. So that's why even bryophytes iaitu lumut and lichen can grow in this area. Kalau daun-daun mati tu jatuh pun akan create a very suitable environment untuk organism-organism macam orchid, mosses dan juga lichen. Next for animals includes hummingbirds, woodpecker, iguana and tree frog. The fifth layer is the emergent. The emergent layer has a very small number of very large trees. Jumlah pokok yang akan sampai ke layer emergent ni sangat sikit, small number. But then pokok-pokok yang ada itu adalah pokok-pokok yang paling besar sekali, reaching the height of 45 until 55 meter. And then only a few species can grow up to 70 until 80 meters tall. So itu dia sangat small number of tree. For example, yellow meranti dan juga tualang tree. So these are example of emergent tree. Kenapa very small number of tree? Because pokok-pokok yang boleh reach the emergent layer must be able to withstand hot temperature as well as strong wind above the canopy. In terms of fauna, animals that can live in this layer includes eagle, bats and certain monkeys. The second ecosystem is lake ecosystem. So what is lake? Lake is a body of fresh water, mesti fresh water, tak boleh salt water. So the water can either be standing or slowly moving. Standing tu maksudnya air tu tak bergerak langsung, ataupun dia bergerak dengan very slowly. And this body of water must be located inland, mesti berada di daratan. Kalau dekat laut dia tak kira. This body of water is characterized by its abiotic condition and the biotic components that lives there. Another important character for a lake is it must have deep bottom that are not exposed to light penetration. So oleh kerana lake tu sangat dalam, that's why cahaya takkan sampai dekat bottom of the lake. Because of that, lake can be divided into different zonation based on light penetration as well as temperature. So for light penetration, lake can be divided into two main zones, photic or aphotic, and then the photic zone can be further subdivided in terms of their distances from the shore, which are littoral or limnatic. First is photic zone. Photic zone is the water surfaces penetrated by the sunlight, and in this region, producers such as plant or algae will be able to conduct photosynthesis to make food. This zone can be further subdivided into subzones which are littoral as well as limnatic. Littoral is the shallow water near to the shore where aquatic plants are dominant. Kenapa? Because in this region, light are able to penetrate until the bottom of the lake. So in terms of plant, kat sini kita akan jumpa banyak plant such as water lilies ataupun duckweed. So these are the floating plants. Ada juga plant lain yang emerge. Emerge tu maksudnya dia punya akar bawah air tapi dia punya daun tu keluar daripada air. So itu adalah emerge plant. Dan ada juga submerged plant, iaitu pokok tu memang completely submerged under water. This plant plays a very important role acting as a producer, which is the food source for the aquatic ecosystem. They also very important to produce oxygen and provide shelter or habitat for insects, crustaceans, frogs, turtles and fish. Next is limnatic. Limnatic is the well-lit, maksudnya cukup cahaya, open water surface farther from the shore, lebih jauh daripada tebing. So because they are farther from the shore and open water, light cannot penetrate to the bottom and we cannot find any rooted plant. Plant yang ada root tak boleh jumpa dekat sini. This is why this region is a more suitable habitat for organism like phytoplankton, iaitu plankton yang boleh buat photosynthesis, or animal like plankton iaitu zooplankton as well as fishes. Phytoplankton, just like plant, will act as a producer and food source as well as producing oxygen for the aquatic organisms. The deeper layer, which is aphotic zone, is the open water below the level of light penetration, so below the photic zone. And this zone receives little ataupun insufficient light for photosynthesis. This is why, in terms of habitat, this region of the lake is inhabited by detritivores ataupun heterotroph that feed on dead organisms or detritus from the photic zone. So detritivores adalah a specific group of organism yang makan benda yang mati. So benda mati tu datang yang tenggelam daripada photic zone. Tak kisahlah plant ke animal ke. So mana-mana plant animal daripada photic zone yang mati, so dia akan tenggelam ke bawah, reaching the aphotic zone. So in this aphotic zone, kita akan jumpa organism yang kita panggil sebagai detritivores sebab dia makan benda-benda mati tersebut. So another name for the dead organism kita panggil sebagai detritus. These are some example of detritivores. The last layer is the benthic zone. This zone is the bottom layer of the lake consisting of the sediment and the subsurface layer. This zone is also known as the zone of decomposition. Sebab dekat sini, the main process adalah decomposition. In the benthic zone, dead plant or animals will sink to the bottom and accumulate. So itu yang akan jadi sediment. In terms of animal, benthic zone is dominated by benthos. Benthos tu adalah groups of organism, for example macam bacteria ataupun fungi ataupun detritivores that feed on the dead organic matter ataupun detritus tadi. So that was the two main types of ecosystem. Next, we will look into the component of the ecosystem. So there are two main components yang macam kita nampak dekat dalam dua example of ecosystem tadi. Mesti ada biotic component dan juga abiotic component. And these two components saling berinteraksi and influencing each other. Biotic component can further be grouped into different types of organism, either autotroph, which is the producer, heterotroph, the consumer, as well as the decomposer. Abiotic pula includes atmosphere, hydrosphere ataupun lithosphere. Atmosphere is the gas section, hydrosphere is the water, lithosphere is the soil and rock. The components interact by one-way energy flow yang kita panggil sebagai food chain. The energy input for most ecosystem will come from the sun or from nutrients present in the environment. Ecosystem also involves cycling of nutrient in the form of biogeochemical cycles between the biotic and abiotic component. So nutrient yang ada dalam ecosystem can be recycled except for the energy. Energy cannot be recycled, but nutrient can be recycled. Dalam proses kita panggil sebagai biogeochemical cycle. So jangan confuse antara energy dengan nutrients. Next, the efficiency of the energy flow as well as the nutrient cycle will stabilize the ecosystem. Seterusnya, kita akan tengok the role of organisms. So in general, there are three main role of organisms that exist in the ecosystem, either acting as a producer or a consumer or a decomposer. So ada tiga kumpulan role of organisms. Producer are any autotroph organisms which are able to synthesize their own food. Tak kisahlah using energy from the sunlight ataupun using energy from other nutrient. Yang penting dia boleh buat makanan sendiri, so itu adalah producer. Producer include plant ataupun algae ataupun photosynthetic bacteria ataupun phytoplankton. So kasih kita nampak bukan plant sahaja boleh act as a producer. Asalkan organism tu able to make their own food, using photosynthesis or using other processes such as chemosynthesis, so that organism can be considered as producer. Next is consumer. So consumers are any heterotrophic organisms that cannot synthesize their own food. Tak boleh buat makanan sendiri. So if they cannot make their own food, they have to get energy from other organisms such as producer or other consumer. So getting the energy can be through eating. Eating tu sama ada grazing ataupun holozoic. Grazing tu merujuk kepada herbivore yang makan plant, itu adalah grazing. Holozoic adalah carnivore yang makan another organisms. Or absorbing by parasitism, iaitu parasitic organism. So here we can see there are 4 main groups of consumer. Ada herbivore, ada carnivore, ada omnivore, ada detritivores. Next is decomposer. Decomposer are heterotrophic organisms that also cannot produce their own food, but this group organism get energy from dead organic matter yang kita panggil sebagai detritus. Berbeza dengan consumer tadi, decomposer will get energy from dead organic matter or also known as detritus. So decomposer will secrete extracellular enzyme that will digest the dead material. After the material has been digested, barulah organism tu akan absorb the nutrient that they need. For example, bacteria or saprophytic fungi. Next, we look into the interaction. There are a few types of interaction. First is competition, and then parasitism, or predation, commensalism, and finally mutualism. Okay, competition. Kenapa wujudnya competition is because of limited resources. Resources can be in terms of food, shelter, or mate. There are 2 types of competition. Interspecific competition is the competition between different species of organism. For example, species lembu yang akan compete dengan species kambing for the same food source, iaitu rumput. At the same time, sesama lembu pun ada competition because they still eat the same kind of food. So intra is within species, inter is between species competition. For parasitism, so parasitism is the organism that absorb nutrient from their host. So kalau dia ambil makanan yang sudah digested by their host, dia absorb sahaja dan dia tidak digest sendiri, so itu adalah parasite. There are 2 groups of parasite, ectoparasite, ecto di luar, ataupun endoparasite, endo tu di dalam. So ectoparasite, for example, kutu yang ada dekat animals, tak kisahlah anjing ke kucing ke, so itu adalah ectoparasite. Kalau endoparasite pula, for example, macam Taenia species, iaitu tapeworm that live inside our small intestine. Next is predation. Predation refers to the action of predator, pemangsa, that feed on the prey, iaitu mangsa. For example, macam burung hantu ni yang makan tikus. So burung hantu is the predator, tikus tu adalah the prey. Another example macam burung yang makan cacing ni. Ini pun prey-predator relationship. The next one is commensalism. Commensalism is when one organism benefit and the other organism remain unharmed. So satu organism yang akan depend on the other organism to live. Organism yang being dependent on itu tidak akan affected in any way. So itu baru commensalism. For example, this barnacle that can be found on whales. So barnacles that live on the whale skin. Or turtles. Dekat turtles pun kita boleh jumpa barnacles. Barnacles uses whale and turtle to move around. The last one is mutualism. So in mutualism, both species must benefit, baru dia mutual, and they are very dependent on each other for survival. For example, kat sini ada clownfish dan juga sea anemone. So clownfish itu akan protect the sea anemone from any predator. Sea anemone pula serve as the habitat for the clownfish. Another example is oxpecker, iaitu burung dan juga zebra. Oxpecker tu akan makan kutu-kutu yang ada dekat zebra as a food source. Zebra pula akan benefit sebab oxpecker tu akan bersihkan bulu-bulu dia daripada parasite ataupun daripada kutu.